we're going to talk about recoil. And again, our primary focus today is to mitigate recoil through grasp and stance. We're also going to talk about the other fundamentals of marksmanship, which include your trigger press and your sight picture. But the grasp is the foundation, the fundamental aspect for everything else that you do. We talked about how the gun, the action of the gun once you press that trigger and you fire the cartridge, and that you've got energy that's going to put the slide to the rear. So you're going to get a little bit of movement in this direction. And just take your gun, and we're going to work through it. Again, I'm going to clear the firearm. So again, when I fire the gun, because I have a force expelling that bullet out the barrel this way, I'm also going to get a counter force in this direction right here. Well, ideally, we would hold our hand, hold the firearm up here, so that force would go right into our hand, but it's not very practical. So instead, the firearm manufacturers have given us the grip, which is essentially a lever. So with a lever, I apply a little bit of force this way, a little bit of force this way, it magnifies that force throughout. So I have a lever, and because this lever creates a pivot point right about here on the gun, not only am I going to get a little bit of motion here, but also I'm going to get a little bit of motion, angular motion in this direction right here. But we're going to control that through your grasp. What's very fortunate is that you're athletic, and the sport that you do requires a lot of grasping, right? Whether you're lifting, I mean, you're cleaning, you're doing all, I mean, so you're not going to have a problem. You're going to do a good job. And even your mom, who once she learned the grasp, she had no movement in the gun. So knowing that she was able to do this, you're going to do a great job. So again, our main objective today is to learn that grasp and how to mitigate that force. Now, a couple things happen with this gun is that, again, we have a spring back here, this energy storage device, and a lot of that recoil is mitigated by overcoming the mass, the inertia of the slide, and it's taken up by that spring and then coming forward. So you're not the direct recipient of all the force on the gun. So there's very, very minimal. There's a couple reasons why we want to be able to mitigate this recoil as well as possible. One is, if you, with proper grasp, proper stance, you're going to have less felt recoil, which means you're not going to have, it'll decrease your anxiety around the firearm. And also, when we use force, we may have to apply force several times to stop a threat. And that number cannot be determined. You can't put on, that's going to take 1 or it's going to take 100. We don't know that. It's an experiment of 1 every time we use a firearm. So we need to be able to get as many applications of force on that threat as quickly as we can to stop, however many it takes to stop that threat. So the better we can decrease the movement of the gun, we can get back to the apple of our eye, those front sights, get those front sights back on target so we can reapply force. Okay? So first thing I'd like you to do is, I'm just going to go ahead and put the gun down. We're going to do a little physics lesson here. So stand straight up. There's only 2 sports that stand like this. Okay? One of them is cheerleading, the other one is gymnastics. And the only time they do that is before and after they actually do something. Everything else, they're 3-dimensional, right? So what I'd like you to do is put your hands just like this and bring them up and stand straight up and down. Now I'm going to apply just a little bit. Notice what you just did is you tried to put an impulse into my force. You tried to counter my force with your force. We're not going to do that today. We're going to use your body and structure and that combination of a grasp to manage that recoil. Okay, so stand straight up. So you know the deal. You know the drill, right? I push you back. What do I do? Come on, and you're pretty strong. Okay. So now what I'd like you to do is, you're right-handed?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you right eye dominant?
I think so. Sure? Yeah.
Okay. To determine eye dominance, what I'd like to do is I want you to make a telescope with one hand. So imagine you're a little kid. Telescope through one hand and bring it up to your eye. Okay. Now I want you to take your left thumb and I want you to put it up it's right here. Okay, I want you to look through that telescope, open both eyes. Wait, put the telescope up to your eye. Okay, and I want you to look at the dot on your finger. Okay. If you're right on it. Okay, good. Stare at that dot. And focus on that dot. Is this somewhat blurry?
Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. This is what you're going to be looking at all day, although it's really the front sight. Okay. Go ahead and put your hand down. Okay. So now we have your eye dominance. Now what I would like you to do is I just want you to take a slight step back with your right foot. Okay. Good. And just open up your legs just at your about shoulder width, right there, knees slightly bent. And just center your weight between your front and your back foot. That's perfect. Now put your hands back up in there. Okay. And don't. I know we're gonna correct that. Okay. Notice how much stronger you are. And now what I want you to do is hold yourself in space. Don't push against me. Just use your whole body to hold yourself in space. Good. Very good. Okay. Notice how your arms were slightly bent. That's good as well. Now what I'd like to do is just bring, with your thumbs up, arms perfectly straight. I want you to bring your hands up together and open your hands. And then clasp down on my hands, arms straight. And try to hold my hand in place, okay? Come on. You're stronger than that. And what did you just do? You just bent your elbows. That's what I want you to do. Notice that slight bend in your elbows? That allows you to apply greater force. So this is a physics problem right here. If I have a rope and I'm holding that rope tight, I can do it with no weight. If I put a 5-pound plate in the middle, we can't hold that at 100-degree angles. It's angular momentum. So what I want you to do is come back up, arms slightly bent. So what this is going to do is going to allow me to apply more grasping force this way, and just right there. Good. Now, because my center of gravity now is just over my knees, I don't want it back, and I don't want it too far forward. Okay, so my CG is going to be right in line right here, and also because your elbows are slightly bent, it's going to give me slight shock absorption. And I'm exaggerating. The gun does not move you this much, but if my elbows are locked, then all of that force goes down my skeleton into my body. Okay. And so you're right there. Okay, good. Okay? And now what I want you to do is bring your hands down here. This is what we're going to call the ready position. And we're going to be in this position quite a bit after we shoot. If I just say go to the ready, that way we don't have to go to the holster. We're still going to go to the holster and come out of the holster. But I want you to, quite often we'll be in the ready. And the next thing I want you to do is just bring that thumb up to your eye. And what I mean by that is I want you to look out here, and I want you to bring your thumb up so it's in line with your eye. And good job not moving your head. That is perfect. I don't want you to bring your eye to your thumb. I want you to bring the front sight or your thumb to your eye. And you did a very good job there. So you're definitely right eye down. Very strong. All right. So now, again, let's talk about the gun. So, again, I always clear the gun. Eyes and fingers, eyes and fingers. You have a good stance. Now what we're going to do is just take a slight step forward. Right there. Good. It's all for the camera. All right. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead. You're going to do is you're going to clear the gun, and then with your elbow bent, hand over the top, clasping the gun right here, clamping, I mean, you're going to push with your right elbow, push with your right hand, and pull with your left, but you don't want your hand to come forward. You want your left hand to come off the gun, just like that. Okay? So go ahead and clear the gun. Going in a safe direction. Good. Okay. Clamp down on the top of the gun and push and pull. Very good. Okay. Now you have now charged the gun. The slide is forward. And that's perfect. Notice where your hand is right here. That's perfect. It's high up on the gun. And this is an empty magazine. And because it's got a short grip, I'm going to go ahead and put the magazine in so you understand what it feels like with the magazine in. Okay, so you're up high on the gun. And again, if I was low on the gun, I'm going to have a space here, which is going to create more angle of momentum. Okay, right there. Now notice this space right here. You ever play with a water balloon when you were a kid?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to give you the answer to this. Where does a water balloon go? Wherever your hands aren't. Okay? And the same thing with the firearm is we want to fill in all of this space. Notice how your fingers are wrapped around the grip very well, and your index fingers up underneath the trigger guard. What I would like you to do now is take your left hand just like this in front of your face. So this knuckle, I want you to place it underneath the trigger and bring your hand, hand right there, and then roll your hand in and fill in that gap. And notice how high your hand is on the gun, okay? And your thumbs are going to be facing forward. Notice how your knuckle is just right up underneath there. So I come up under the gun. Okay, right here, and fill in that gap. And notice how now I have a circumferential grasp around the gun, and I'm taking up all that space, and my thumbs are facing forward. The reason why your thumbs are facing forward is now we can apply a force to this gun that keeps it in line, and also, watch me and my thumb. I can point to the camera, I can point to you. I know where my thumb goes all the time, and I use this as a pointing device towards the target.
Okay.
And that helps with your intuitive target finding. Essentially, you're going to be able to bring it up. You're so used to bringing your thumb, your index finger to an object. Very good. Good. So now you have a good stance. You're in the ready position. Now what we're going to do, so the first verbal cue that I will give you is going to be grasp, which is what you're doing now. And then the next one is going to be called sight. And you're going to bring the gun up, elbows slightly bent, right there. Good. And see that front sight? Now what I'd like you to do is, see this gap back here on the rear sights? I want you to find that front sight through that gap. Can you see it? And don't bring your head, move the gun, not your head.
Okay.
Okay? See the front sight?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what your sight picture looks like. So this front sight is going to be lined, that dot is going to be lined up with those dots. Don't scrunch your head down. Look, yes. Right there. Lean forward just a little bit. See how center of gravity right there? Good, right there. So that's what your sight picture looks like.
Okay.
All right. Now what we're going to do is I want you to grasp that gun as hard as you can, okay? And I'm going to try to move the gun. Okay, don't put an impulse into me though. Try to keep it still in space. Feel how hard you have to grasp the gun? Breathe. Breath control. You know, and notice what you're doing is you're applying a force against me. Don't apply a force against me. Just hold it in this in this spot in space. Okay. Lean forward just a little bit. Right there. And don't turtle your head. Right there. Good. Now relax. Feel how hard you had to grasp that gun. That's how hard you're going to have to do it. And obviously you can do it because you just did it. Another thing I'd like you to do is you are starting to turn your shoulders away from me. So I want you to square up your hips towards the target and square up your shoulders. So grasp, sight. So bring the gun up, sight. That is absolutely perfect right there. Notice how your shoulders are square now? So I'm going to have an equal application of force with both my arms as opposed to different angles. Looking at that front sight. Okay, just bring this arm up right there. Very good. Grasping the gun as hard as you can. Good. And back down to the ready. That is absolutely perfect. So my first cue, grasp. And as I come up, I'm going to be firming up that grasp as hard as I can go. Sight. The next one is going to be called touch. And what that means is that's how I'm going to touch the trigger. And one thing you'll notice about the trigger is, notice there's a little bit of play there. We call it slack.
Okay.
And it goes up to the point where you can actually press the trigger. Okay. So a touch, using my finger, see where my nail bed touches my finger? I want that about in the middle of the trigger. So I'm going to bring my finger around. This is my trigger. This is my finger. I'm going to bring my finger around. Now the challenge is I have a 1.5 pound gun. I have a 5 pound trigger. 5 pounds of force to a 1.5 pound object. I move the object, right? So I want to move that object in a linear fashion against this resistive force. Okay, it's a static resistive force. Isokinetic. And what I'm going to do is I want to apply my force straight back. Problem is the human finger ain't designed like that. Okay, we're like monkeys without tails, and we're not afraid of vacuum cleaners. All right. So our force, I practice a lot. My force wants to go in an arc. But I want that force to come straight to the rear. Notice how I have to bend my finger straight to the rear. So you're going to do your best to apply that force straight to the rear. Those come with time, repetition. Okay. So when square up your hips, good. And all I do is I just squeeze my right butt cheek and I just drive my hips forward. Very good. Okay. So grasp, sight. Good. Now touch the trigger. Very good. And notice what happens when you touch the trigger. You take up a little bit of that slack. You don't need to consciously take up that slack right now.
Oh,
okay. Just you will. It'll come in. It'll happen. So go ahead and touch. Now focusing solely on that front sight. All we're going to do is you're going to hear me say the word press, not press. Press. And what that means is once I initiate that press, it is a smooth, consistent trigger press straight to the rear until the gun goes click. Okay, so grasping the gun hard, grasp, sight, touch, and press. Good. Now the gun goes bang, it recycles the gun. I've got a magazine in, so it locks to the rear, okay, because of the empty magazine. Okay, so that's the full cycle. Fix this real quick. Okay, so go ahead and go to the ready. Good. And stack those thumbs right there. And it's just an equal application of force all the way around. So grasp, sight, touch, and what do you mean by that? What did she do? You went too early?
I went too early.
That's okay. I'm glad you caught it. And so go ahead and finger off the trigger and come down to the ready. The way that we learn, there's a couple different ways, but one thing that's really important is if you identify mistakes early and you're able to identify mistakes, you will actually learn faster. So by creating a mistake, by making a mistake, at being able to cognitively identify it and then changing it, it actually helps you with that learning process. So I'm going to allow you to make mistakes as long as they're not safety mistakes, then we're going to correct them very quickly. But if it's a mechanical thing, and being that you're athletic and you already have a good awareness of your body and where you are in space, I'm going to allow you to get off that path a little bit. And then there may be that reminder, finger or knees, whatever that cue is. But I want you to correct those mistakes.